Hey guys, Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions LLC, BHSpringSolutions.com, and this video actually is being made for the BH Vet Recon unit, guys, and as a part of our documenting affirmatively this new redesigned trigger subassembly for the high power pistols. And the demo pistol today is a 1993, actually. This is a former Israeli high power pistol that was a surplus, and it's got this drab gray parkerized finish on it, and it'll probably get a BH Performance Black one of these days. Oh, before I get started, I wanted to do a trigger pull weight check on this. This has got the stock trigger, 3-coil trigger return spring, magazine disconnect is out, and you can see just about where that's at, 5 pounds, right dead on it. And that's not bad. This has got the SFS system in it, and again, it's got the stock trigger. I wanted to show you one thing about this trigger real quickly. Do you see the angle of it? You can just tell by looking at it, you're going to have this down and back motion going on, and the reset is going to be a forward and up motion, and the trigger pull is going to be a down and back motion. So that's kind of a deficiency. If you look at a cylinder and slide wide trigger, and we're not wanting to pick on anybody's product, but if you look at a cylinder and slide wide trigger, which I personally find appealing, but it is set farther forward in the trigger guard, and it's even more of a down and back kind of a motion. So that's one of the things that we're just pointing out about this new trigger subassembly. This is also going to be a quick little tutorial about installing the new trigger and showing you that. We're going to go ahead and get this old trigger out. That was pretty easy. And so we'll set that all aside. We'll set the trigger pin aside. And now we're going to show you the new trigger. And this is kind of a first look. You're going to see how wide that trigger is compared to the OEM trigger. My goodness, there's just like no comparison between these two. And the other thing that we noticed very quickly is when we put these up together kind of side by side like this, do you see what's happened with the angle of the trigger? So you can imagine what that's going to look like when you see this installed here in just a second. You'll notice that the trigger spring pin is an easy to install and uninstall. This is on purpose. That's what the redesigned trigger looks like. The last modification we made was to smooth out and round off these corner edges right here, so nobody is getting their trigger finger cut on the upper edge of that width part, wide part of the trigger. It's full 9 millimeters wide. 9 millimeters was John Browning's 22 target pistols, the width, by the way. The serrations are actually the prescribed serrations for the Bulgarian national rifle team, if I'm not mistaken, but they're extremely comfortable, but sufficiently aggressive serrations for good grip on the trigger finger. This is the new trigger return spring. Haven't seen anything like that before, I'm sure. And it simply installs in a similar position as the traditional trigger return spring. It's just a very, very different trigger return spring. We purposely made this pin very easy to install and uninstall. In fact, it'll oftentimes even just fall out if you don't hold it in place. This is captured by the frame when we go ahead and we install it now. So that pin can be purposely not a tight pin, so you're not killing yourself pounding it in and out. Now, I don't know if we can get this in the video or not, but I want to try to show you as much of this as I possibly can. This is the new trigger lever here. This new trigger lever is a easy little piece of genius to install. If you can see me installing it right there, orienting the trigger return spring to the outside of the trigger lever. We're going to come forward, clear the frame, and we're installed in place just that easily. Now, I can't swear it's going to go that easily for you every time, but with just a little bit of practice, it's not a big problem. Now, from this point, whoops, we're going to reorient ourselves in position here real quick. There we go. Now, from this point, you can see we have a affirmative position of that trigger lever. From this point, I can install the trigger pin and go shoot. The next part, or the next spring, is optional, and I want to show you how that installs here in just a second, but I wanted to show you how easy that is. And you see how this trigger is positioned in the frame. It's this very pure straight back as you can get for a trigger that's rotating on an axis. You're going to see it's farther back in the trigger guard. If a guy's got gloves on, he has no problem getting in here. The width is just wonderful for the trigger finger. But the other component that can be installed here, and make sure we get this in the video, this is a magazine eject assist spring. This spring has no effect on the trigger whatsoever, because I'm going to show you why here in just a second, but it installs just like I'm going to show you. I should have a pair of non-magnetizing tweezers for this job, but it's not terribly difficult. In fact, I'm just about home with this right now. 3/32 nail punch, or the stage 1 trigger pin punch tool, is a nice tool right here for this. And what I've done is I've retracted that 3/32 punch tool just enough to go ahead and position the punch tool through the magazine eject assist spring. Now, what I want to show you here is that magazine eject assist spring is actually going to be held by the trigger pin, which means that its base is the trigger pin. The front of that magazine eject assist spring is in the trigger spring well area of the frame, and that's not going to have any effect on your trigger pull whatsoever. So we're going to use the 3/32 as a slave pin, so to say. Back in with our trigger pin, and you see everything working. Now, interesting feature of this is I want you to watch that spring inside that magazine eject assist spring. When I push up on the magazine, that comes up with the magazine just like that. When I let go of or release the mag catch, that pushes that magazine out of the pistol. So, and that's the only function of it whatsoever. Now, here's another kind of a cool thing. Let's just imagine you're training, and for tactical purposes, you're in the middle of a mag change, and you need to go ahead and spin the one in the chamber. And I can do that. With the magazine out, there is not a magazine disconnect, so the pistol will fire in this position. However, in this position, the magazine eject assist spring now is applying some pressure to the trigger, and it increases the trigger pull by about 1 pound. And my finger can sense that, and that tells me that's the last shot, because I have no magazine in the pistol. The trigger pulls a little bit heavier. When I put the magazine in, there is no influence whatsoever mechanically of that magazine eject assist spring, and I have this very, very pure light kind of a trigger pull. So I'll go ahead and reassemble. I want to go ahead and show you the amount of take-up. Mechanically, that's the minimal amount of take-up that you can have right there as you're looking at it. Or if you have less take-up than this, you'll have more over travel. The design requires a certain amount of trigger travel, a certain amount of reset travel, but I want to show you just how short that is. And then this is the full reset, and we're back again for another shot. Okay, we're going to do a trigger breakaway test now. We have the magazine in the pistol. And that was about 4 5/8. right at 4.5. That one was dead on 4 1/8. So we're running between about 4 1/8 and 4.5. That was 4 3/4. So we're a little bit lighter on the trigger brake weight, but one thing that is just wonderful is this very, very pure straight back, short trigger pull, short reset, just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that is the new advanced high power trigger from BHSpringSolutions. And this is actually a video record of this invention, of this design, for also for our own purposes of having this record that this design existed as of the date of this video being published on the internet. Thanks for watching, guys.